Engine Performance 1, Test 7, starting and charging system diagnosis. Which of the following could cause excessive battery drain? Glove box slide, underhood light, trunk light.
All of these.
And what is the common denominator of all those lights?
There's a switch for to tell if it's closed.
All of them are where you can't see them. They're actually where you're not going to see them.
You can't see it.
Yep. Huh? What? You know how you'd find the parasitic drain is you take your battery cable off, put your meter in between there. You're not supposed to have more than, how much? 50 milliamps. 50 milliamps, which is a tiny little bit. If you got more than that, you're probably going to have issues. So what happened there is you pull your, well, when you're looking at your meter, you pull fuses till you find it. On my pickup truck, my pickup started killing the battery. So I hooked my meter up and it was pulling 200 milliamps. Every week I would come out there after I let it park all week, and if it would dead battery. And so first thing I did, because I know some of those 07 F-150s have a tendency to kill the battery with the instrument cluster, I pop the top off and I pull the instrument cluster connectors loose, and I let it sit there a week like that, because I don't drive it but on weekends. And when I earn it's still dead. I didn't have an instrument cluster problem. So I go in there and I hook up the meter I hook up the meter, I got about 200 milliamps of draw. All right, and so I put the meter, and the only junction box on this truck is behind the right kick panel inside the truck. It ain't under the hood. It ain't got one under the hood on that one. And it's an 07 model. There's no smart junction box because it's just a base truck, right? It's just a fuse panel, that's all it is. So I get out there and watching my meter, I start pulling fuses. When I get, and naturally it's the last daggum fuse I pull, you know what I'm saying? When I pull fuse 21, it goes away. All my draw is gone. All right, so I find out that fuse 21 doesn't feed anything except the instrument cluster keep alive. Well, the instrument cluster is not the problem because I've already disconnected it and eliminated it. Got me? It's got to be something inside this laminated fuse panel. And these laminated fuse panels, you know, Ford's been using them ever since the late 90s. And they cause internally, they'll have trouble shorting out. And so I went ahead and bought a $250 fuse panel. And I put it on there, and it was, you know, just everything just fine. So anyway, but finding it, you know, being able to find that without having to, you know, if you go to somewhere and you hire somebody to do that stuff, you're going to pay, you know, through the nose for your part and the diagnosis and everything else. Knowing how to do it yourself is good on your car, but it's also good on your customer's car. But if you know how to do what they don't know how to do, your customer is going to give you some money. And that's what you're in business for. Technician A says the starter drive clearance is too small. The starter will produce a noise during cranking. Technician B says the starter drive clearance is too large. The starter will produce a noise during cranking.
No, that second one was after.
After cranking.
What do you think?
Neither.
I don't know. It seems like
It says a noise after cranking. These are backwards.
Yeah.
After cranking. Why would it produce a noise after cranking if it's got too small a clearance? Because the gear sticks in there, and it's trying to, you know, the little overrunning clutch in it's just reason came because of, you know. What is the ratio between the starter gear and the gear on the flywheel usually?
say that again.
The ratio, how many, as far as teeth, how many teeth?
Twice as many.
14 to 1.
14 to 1.
No, on a starter, yeah, the starter is a 14 to 1 ratio. About. That's an about, yeah.
Crankshaft.
Yeah, you were overthinking it. Technician A says manufacturers sometimes, that was D, by the way, the second one. Technician A says manufacturers sometimes use metal shims to provide accurate starter drive clearance. Technician B says hitting the starter motor may damage the permanent magnets inside. Who's right about that? Both of those guys are right.
Although if it's already went out,
Huh?
just hit it with a hammer anyway. That's
Yeah.
an easy way to get it started. If you
Yeah.
don't have the money and it's just sitting there with it.
Well, if you break the magnets, though, it doesn't start anymore at all. I ain't saying you should never hit it, but you just have it. Now, there's this one car out there, this girl brings it in here, and you might remember it. Who remembers that car? She said, I just had a new starter put on this car, you know, not 3 weeks ago. But every time I started, I got to whack a starter with a hammer to get it to start. So I got in there and looked at it, and you know the two little screws that hold the brush assembly to the back of the starter? The starter depends on the ground to get those through the screw. One of those screws was loose and it was scorched. So all I basically had to do was take that screw out, polish it up, put it back in, she was fixed. I fixed a bunch of starters on Power Stroke diesels like that. You know, somebody say, oh, right, I might have put a starter on my Power Stroke. I said, well, we'll see, you may not have to. So I got in there and tightened the screws on the starter in the parking lot, laying on the ground. And they pay like a minimum charge or something like that, you know. And they're really, really happy. You don't always have to put a $750 part on something to fix it, you know. So,
You know, I can't work on cars anymore like that.
what?
Man, on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, you get used to in
I
here?
can't do it.
Yeah. Well, on the parking lot out there, you know, and I do that, yeah.
Why is like every every time with my truck, you know how like you have to wait for the go for the road? I think it was called.
I don't understand the question. You mean you don't like having to wait for the glow plugs?
Yeah, you gotta wait for that the little light go off. You know, when you turn.
Yeah, that's basically so that the, it's, whenever the diesel pistons are squeezing the air, it's creating heat. If it's cool, then the metal is going to absorb the heat, and the glow plugs have got to make it so that you don't have any misfires when you're starting up. A lot of times whenever you, if you got a glow plug that's burned out a lot of time, and that one ain't working, it'll misfire on that cylinder for a little bit, and then it'll clean up its act and start firing. But it's, that, all them diesels are like that.
Do I have to wait until the clicking noise go off?
I just wait till the light goes off.
The light goes off?
Yeah, wait till the little light goes
You
off.
turn your switch and the car won't start.
I mean, like it'll start, but you have to wait for the light to go off.
You're supposed to wait for the glow plug light to go off. He's driving a 6-liter Power Stroke 2006 model, and he don't like waiting for the glow plug light. You know what I'm saying? All right. He'll usually fire up anyway, but you know. All right. Now then, when working with batteries, all the following statements are correct except what?
Let's see.
A, always disconnect the positive terminal first.
You know, the positive terminal is the one that's going to create the most spark usually if there is current flowing. That's why most switches are switching on the left side, but not all. A battery measures 12.4 volts after removing the surface charge. Surface charge is basically whenever you've just charged the battery up, you know, it's got a little charge that's over and above, and you got to get that off where you'll know what the solid part of it is. What percent is it charged to? 75%. All right. Technician A says the battery must be in good condition and charged and at least 75% charged to accurately test an alternator. Technician B says an alternator output should be tested at idle. Which technician is correct about that? A only. Basically, if you're going to test the alternator, get an accurate reading, you got to go higher and idle with it. It's smarter to do that. 7, a voltage drop test is being performed on the alternator positive circuit. The red lead of the multimeter is placed on the alternator output post. Where's the black lead of the multimeter connected? You're doing a voltage drop test on the alternator positive circuit. Where are you going to put your meter? You're actually going to hook it from the battery positive post to the big terminal on the alternator, because that's where that all goes back to.
That's exactly what I said.
Yep, I told you the other day. Scan tool can be used to check what?
All of them.
All of the above. Charging voltage, cranking RPM, cranking voltage. Now on those Power Strokes, you know, they got their little worksheet and everything, and one of the things they want you to have a certain amount of battery voltage, a certain amount of cranking speed, and all that kind of stuff. It's really important to know about all that. Number 9, and incidentally, the Ranger out there, sometimes you may be able to start the Ranger if the battery's a little bit low. If that battery voltage on that Ranger goes below about 7.6 volts, it will not even operate the injectors, even though it's spinning the engine pretty good. It'll go run, 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 but the injectors will work. The reading on this DVOM means the battery is what?
C.
Huh? What do you think? Who's got that? Number 9, that's Charlie. Low in charge. The voltage reading.
If 12.4 is 75% of the thing over here on number 5, and that would be low.
Yeah, that one's low. Hey, he's thinking. Who's talking out there? Oh, that's Joey. He's getting some coffee. Number 10. See this voltage reading here? Burn that in. Remember what it was, and look where it's being checked at. This voltage reading was obtained while cranking the engine. The indicated reading, which is 816 millivolts, is what?
Alright.
Now, what should it be on the ground side? No more than 0.1, guys.
Yeah.
No more than 0.1.
That's all it negative.
And when somebody's already changed the starter and they've already changed the battery and they're still spinning slow, you know, and you know there's nothing wrong with making the engine spin slow. You ever think about that? If it's spinning slow, I want to get under there with a breaker bar to see how easy the engine is to turn. If it's easy to turn, I'm going to be doing a voltage drop check. See where we're losing some of that. Because chances are you're not getting everything you need there. Number 11. What test is being performed in this illustration? What test is being performed in this illustration? All right. Okay. What test is being performed in this illustration with the engine running?
That's
Have we got a consensus here? Alternator output voltage drop test. You see that picture? That's what we were just talking about previously. You're going from the battery output to the positive terminal, and you want to go, if possible, and you can't do this on a 5-post GM battery, you want to go, if possible, to the post itself, not the terminal, okay? Always go from the screw terminal, actually where the stud is coming out of the alternator, to the post on the battery, because you want to measure the connection between those. Number 13, a battery high rate discharge load capacity test is being performed on a 12-volt battery. Technician A says a good battery should have a voltage reading higher than 9.6 while under load at the end of a 15-second test. Technician B says the battery should be discharged loaded to 2 times its CCA rating. Who's right about that? It's actually half its CCA rating, okay? All right. That's a sort of a difficult thing to put on a worksheet unless you got a car that's being run a lot, you know, because a lot of the batteries on the trainer cars are kind of sort of lackluster in the amount of charge they got on them. One of the things that you learn how to do really, really well here is jump off a car. Everybody's really good at jumping a car off when they leave here. I mean, boy, I'm telling you, learn how to jump a car off. Because they all did out there. Normal battery to parasitic drain with a vehicle with many computer and electronic circuits is what?
When you said
20 to 30 milliamperes, no more than 50.
Okay.
No more than 50, right? Although, on some of the Chrysler stuff, they'll have an IOD fuse, ignition off draw. And whenever that Jeep or whatever it is that you got out there is parked on the service lot, that fuse needs to be pulled out and put away. Some of them will have this yellow carrier that actually has the 2 main fuses that, you know, powers up the stuff that's prone to kill the battery. Click, you just pull it up. It doesn't come all the way out, it comes up. I mean, you can bring it out of there if you release the little ears on it, but it's supposed to be pulled out. Then the salesman is supposed to go out there when they go to drive this car that's been sitting out there for a month, and they're just supposed to push that back down, and they're supposed to drive the car, and when they get out of the car, they're supposed to pull it back up. Salesmen don't like to do that crap. So what they do is, they let the battery go slam dead on it, and then they want to run it into the service department, have a new battery thrown in it. There's nothing wrong with the battery that's in it. They just killed it by not pulling that ignition off draw fuse out. You know, so that's part of the deal on there for shipping. Like if you're going to take if you're going overseas, like if you're going to Afghanistan or something, and you're going to park your vehicle, you know, and it's got one of these kind of, you're going to pull that so that the battery is not going to drain the first 3 weeks you're gone overseas. You know what I mean? All right, so there you go. And every vehicle doesn't have that, but I tell you what I always like to do, if I got one, I'm going to be in the park for a long time, I like to take a battery terminal off of it just to be sure that, you know, it ain't going to, something, you know, on computer circuits won't kill it, because they will over time. Okay, Technician A says a discharge battery, lower the normal battery voltage, you can call solenoid clicking. Technician B, and that's that brrr, you know, when you try to start. Technician B says a discharge battery or dirty, corroded battery terminals can cause solenoid clicking. Who's right about that? Both of them are right. I'll tell you something else. You got a good strong battery charger like the ones we got here. Somebody comes in, they said I had to jump my car off this morning. They park it out here. You hook that big strong battery charger up to it that we got. You know, let's say you got decent looking clean terminal. Hook that big strong battery charger up and you try to start it. If it goes and typically you got a bad battery. That's usually what that is. And that's what we did. It's got to be one of them, you know, good big powerful chargers though. All right, now then, where are we at here?
16.
Slow cranking can be caused by all the following except what? An open neutral safety switch is not going to cause slow cranking. Because if it's going to, you know, if it's letting anything through at all, it's going to energize that thing. All right, number 17. If the starter turns slowly when engaged, a possible cause is what? A worn or defective starter. If it turns slowly when engaged, it ain't going to be a defective solenoid. It ain't going to be a disconnected battery terminal. It's not going to be an open ignition switch. A worn or defective starter, dragging, whatever. And what would we do if we suspected a worn or defective starter? Next step. Somebody tell me.
Test it. Take it off, test it.
Bingo. Bench test it. Put it on the bench. Hook a good strong battery up to it. Don't try to do it with a battery charger because that ain't good. You got to have a good strong battery. Battery charger ain't a good thing to use to check them. You need some juice. Wing. If it does fine on the bench, don't throw a starter on it. One time, and this is kind of funny, I had my Sable in here, right? And I says, I'm going to cross a couple of spark plug wires so that when they come in, I'll say, this thing is running bad or whatever, so you can figure out what's wrong with it. And the first time I started it up, it kicked back and it broke the starter. it goes boom, and next thing you know, the starter is swinging by the wire. The housing on the front of the starter is shattered because of that kickback from the. So
you did.
be aware of the fact. And I tell you something else. That there is an ignition part over there. You know that little yellow, that long bucket that all those coils go in on those quad 4 engines. You know what I'm talking about? There's one over there. It's a white one on the ignition system stuff. Should be. Anyway, that long white thing, that thing can go bad and cause them to cross spark. That's it, right there. That's a bad one right there. Let me show you that. On those quad 4 engines where you can't see any plug wires and they got the coils in here, that's a GM thing. This thing right here can actually scorch through and cross over from one coil to the other. And you can see that that's what happened on this one right here. See that? See that little place right there? That's how you see. See them little lightning bolt looking black streaks right there, and that right. I've seen that kind of thing destroy a starter. Just absolutely bust it wide open like we're talking about. That's off a quad 4, like in a GM, a small GM car. It's a little like some of your Oldsmobile Leros and stuff would have in them and all that kind of stuff. And they've been out there for a long time. But these things right here routinely, y'all probably sell these fairly regular over there, don't you? Or do you anymore?
Once or twice.
Yeah. Well, they've this one here I keep for a prop. Here you go. Put that back over there where the ignition parts are. All right. Now then, let me see where we at here.
Oh no, actually 18.
Yeah, acceptable charging circuit voltage on 12-volt systems. What?
13.5 and 15.
You like that?
I like it.
Let's go with that then. Technician A says a voltage drop test of the charging circuit should only be performed when current is flowing through the circuit.
True.
Technician B says to measure the voltage drop of the charger system, connect the leads of the voltmeter to the positive and negative terminals of the battery. Something else you're never supposed to do, and too many people, you know, I mean, I can go over here and check all these meters over here, and these people will fool around and hook a hook it up to measure amps, and they'll, without thinking, hook it to the positive and negative side of the battery, and then the meter becomes the load. It's a very short-lived load, but it's a load, all right? All right, so then we got, you know, you go to check it, somebody needs to use this meter to check amps, and all of a sudden they won't read amps anymore, so they didn't pop the fuse on the inside of it. And if you got a Fluke 88 or one of those meters, that daggone fuse is $7 or $8 per fuse.
Yeah.
Do not. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I don't have Fluke 88 and all these fancy meters in here is when I first came here, there was an empty box for a Fluke meter over there, and that's all that was here was an empty box. I said, well, I got a pretty nice meter here, or I thought I did. And I said, I learned right then when I walked in the door before I ever, any student ever come in, I said, I will not have expensive meters in this shop for people to steal. You know, and that's why we have a bunch of $10 meters, because they'll do pretty much whatever you want to do. Yeah, they're not bad. All right, technician, let's see. Okay, technician A says the voltage drop test the charging circuit. Blah, we already done that. Testing the electrical system through the ladder plug using the digital meter can test what?
All the above.
Charging system voltage.
Can you check charging system current through the ladder plug, Joe? Come on now. You just said that. You were just woofing. That's what you were doing. Charging system voltage is all you can do. You cannot check current by checking voltage. That's why you need more than a plain old voltmeter to check the charging system on a vehicle. Okay, let me see. An alternator could test as producing lower than the normal output, still be okay if what? In other words, the alternator could still be good even if the lower output voltage is, you know, measured. If what else is wrong?
All of them.
The drive belt's loose, battery's weak, engine speed's not high enough during testing or any of these. Now you know the fan, the alternators with external fans on them. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
If you can grab that fan and you can turn it with your fingers and slip that belt ain't tight enough. You know what I mean? In other words, you just grab the fan with your fingers. If you can turn that belt, and turn that fan, that belt slips. Now, usually on today's cars with the spring-loaded tensioners and all that, you know, you're not going to have that. I'm going to tell you something else, though. Those aluminum tensioners can actually just pop without warning. So if a car is really, really high mileage and you want to protect your customer from possible failures, it's not a bad idea to put a tensioner on it.
They're
Except
not that expensive.
I would use a Gates.
That's all we sell.
Yeah, I know. O'Reilly sells Gates, and And Gates is the one I like the best. If you're not going to use OEM, use a Gates.
I think I'm good.
And I'm not trying to say anything bad about anybody else's tensioners, except that I don't like them. I like the Gates, I like the OEM, but I don't like the other brands that are out there because I've had bad luck with some of those. All right, I'm just talking this out of, telling from experience. Okay, cold cranking amp refers to the current a battery can produce while sustaining 7.2 volts at what temperature?
32 degrees Fahrenheit.
Really? Seriously? Listen to Joe. Joe's got this one by the
Is it
tail.
zero?
0 degrees Celsius.
0 degrees Fahrenheit.
I thought-
You look on your battery.
Cold.
Look on your battery. Cold cranking amps is 0 degrees. If you look at just cranking amps, it's going to be higher. And it'll say at 32. Look at a battery. You'll see it. Reserve capacity is the number of minutes a battery can produce how many amps while maintaining at least 10.5 volts?
30.
25. 25 amps while maintaining 10.5 volts. When performing a battery load test, how many seconds should the load be applied?
90 seconds.
15 seconds. As a matter of fact, on this Snap-on tester out here, when you dial that load knob and that carbon pile makes a short between those two terminals, you're going to see a light, a load light that's going to blink for 15 seconds. Got it? I don't really like doing that test, but it's a sanctioned test. Which type of battery uses an electronic device to measure battery state of charging capacity? Which type of battery testing, uses an electronic device to measure a battery state of charge and capacity?
Load testing.
That's conductance testing. That little meter that we got, that Medtronics meter, that's what it does. All right, does anybody have any questions or comments? Did anybody turn into a skeleton? Except for, besides Melissa. Okay.